Here we are, and it is a lovely evening in early fall, or is it getting into late fall? The colors are changing everywhere. Now, you may not notice it as much on the city streets, but look at those trees. They're really stunning. And occasionally you'll see the leaves falling onto your sidewalks, and then when the rains, everything glistens with color, especially at nighttime. It's a lovely thing. I'm Vesta of the Sonoma County Gazette, and I publish the Sonoma County Gazette once a month in print edition every single day on the website at sonomacountygazette.com. And of course, there's a Facebook page where all kinds of hot conversations come on and happen every single day. So one of the things that we do is we're reaching out. It's media. And this is C Media right here, and Marlo Allenbright is my producer, and Ishan behind me, right over here. You can't see her. She's the one who puts it all together and makes it work. And actually, she has a show on C Media as well. You might want to check it out. It's music, a lot of music, right? A lot of music and spirituality. She's got something going on here. C Media is a wonderful opportunity for the community to express itself to itself. There's one of the things that my motto for the Sonoma County Gazette is building community. And C Media is the same thing. What they're trying to do is connect people to other people in the community, educate people on things that are going on. Things are happening. There's people happening all over Sonoma County, and especially in Santa Rosa, which is the hub of Sonoma County. And here, people come in and they tell you what they're doing, so you can get all inspired and excited about it. It's very cool. So C Media is right next to the Santa Rosa High School on Mendocino Avenue. And goodness gracious, if you're watching this, you know exactly how to find it on the television, don't ya? So I was talking with Marlo about doing a survey of who watches C Media. And so I think I'm talking her into this thing about we want to do this Survey Monkey thing. And if I say it on this show, then I can pressure her into actually accomplishing it. So we can find out who's watching C Media, what time of day you watch it, what are your favorite programs, who are the favorite people you want to keep track of, why do you watch this station? How fascinating it is to find that out. Because if you're watching the station and you're using it to connect to the community, then it's working. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And we want to let the Santa Rosa City Council know about that. You know what I mean? Because they're the ones who fund it. So Santa Rosa, this is Sonoma County Gazette. And so we have my little paper here. It's not a little paper. It's 72 pages in print. We have over 9,000 copies floating around all over Santa Rosa. So if you're Santa Rosa centric and you want to pick up a copy of the Gazette, please go onto our website, sonomacountygazette.com, and look under Find the Gazette. And you're going to find a list, and you're going to find some place. And I'm going to encourage you, if you can't find it, you tell me where you want to find it, and I'm going to get permission to put it there. So let me see. I don't know what I'm going to talk about tonight. So we were talking about what I don't know what I'm going to talk about tonight. So I think what I'll do is I'll start with the idea of the homeless situation. Affordable housing and homeless go hand in hand. There are three main reasons why people are homeless. One is because they can't afford a home. And so there are an awful lot of working people who their rent goes up and they end up on the streets. There's a woman out in Guerneville who was on HUD housing. She was a veteran and she had injured herself in the war. She has 2 children. She was in HUD housing, and the landlord decided he was going to raise the rent $300 a month. And she said, I can't do this. I just can't do this. So she thought that she was going to be able to get another place to live. And so she said, all right, I'm out of here. Pitched a tent down by the river this summer. It's nice in the summer. It's not so bad. There's a lot of places even in Santa Rosa that are not so bad in the summer. And then it started raining. She has yet to find a place to live. Her kids are back in school. A son is in high school and the daughter is in elementary school, and she takes them to school every day and they come home to that tent, rain or shine. Now the son has started couch surfing. And that's the way he's decided that he can have some place that works for him in terms of high school. But the girl, she's only 9 years old. She's close to her mom. Now, I can tell you that this woman has tried many, many times to find a place to live. It's not like she's just hanging out in her tent doing nothing. She's looking for a place to live. She's applying to HUD housing apartments and houses. And now, HUD has very, very specific rules about where they are going to pay the rent for someone to live. So it has to meet requirements, and they'll make sure it's clean and neat and it's safe, and it's a good, solid place to live. Some landlords don't even want to meet those needs. But the big deal is a lot of landlords say that they don't want to accept HUD housing because they want to get more money than HUD is willing to give them. But the big deal about HUD is that it's like a guaranteed income. You get somebody in there who's a HUD housing person, and they will pay the bill every month. Now, the person who's the renter, they might be risky, but the HUD, it's not risky. So why more apartment complexes and homes don't go for HUD housing is mind-boggling to me. Now, we had a discussion about this the other day, it was a precursor to the housing summit that's coming up on November 17th that the community, what do you call it? Oh God, I know the people, Jim Leddy and the community development, Sonoma County Community Development, and they're having a big summit on November 17th. And if I turn the pages of the Gazette, I could actually find it for you. So you want to turn the pages of the Gazette for me, Marlo? Find out where this is. Housing is a huge issue in Sonoma County. It's not just affordable housing, it's housing. So you can buy a house if you have money, you can rent a house if you have money, but if you don't have money, housing is an issue. So what do you do when someone says, I'm going to raise your rent? And that's one of the deals of why in Santa Rosa, the issue of rent control is so huge. And it's a battle. And it's an us versus them battle to a certain extent. I come from back east where, rent control actually caused slums. People have been in rent control apartments for decades, and they didn't do a cost of living increase, so the buildings started falling apart and there was no money to fix them. And what happens eventually, the building falls apart, people are forced to leave because it's condemned, and then someone comes in, buys the land, turns a new building and takes it over, and plung, people still lose their homes. So part of the rent control issue is, if it does happen, can it be done in a way that is fair to both the landlord and to the tenant? Can it be done in a way that has, say, the 3% cost of living increase every year? Something that if someone is on, say, Social Security, they can get a cost of living increase. If they're on some other kind of a system that pays them money, it's not a job, they can get a cost of living increase. Can the landlord also get a cost of living increase? Because you know that if he's going to hire she is going to hire a carpenter or a plumber, their cost is going to go up every year to keep that building maintained. So the big deal on rent control is, can you keep the buildings maintained while you're keeping the rent into something that people can consistently afford? And so that one is just huge, and it's more in Santa Rosa and in the incorporated cities than it is in the unincorporated areas. It impacts the cities because that's where more housing developments are, where the city government is in control of it. It's one of the things that's splitting the people who are running for city council right now. There are some who are for rent control, some who are against rent control. So there are people who are voting right now who are saying basically, well, if I rent and if I want to stay here, I'm going to vote for the person who is for rent control. You can divide it along those lines. There's other issues you could look at with those people as well, but I can see where it gets really personal. So rent control is one of the issues around affordable housing. The other one is how much is available. Not so much, which is why someone like this woman who is looking for a place to live can't find one, because there's not a lot of vacancies that are affordable. So that's one of the reasons why building affordable housing becomes a big issue. So building affordable housing, right? Sonoma County has had I don't even know what they call it. It's a policy in place for a long time, which means that when a developer wants to build a building, they are required to put 10% of that building into affordable housing. Well, a lot of these developers will trade their affordable housing credits just like carbon credits are traded with the environment. So they'll say, I don't really want to put affordable housing in my community. Could you put it in yours? Well, that actually kind of works in a little bit, because let's say you're going to put up a big housing complex on the top of Fountain Grove Hill, and really, if you were to live in a 400 square foot apartment and next to somebody's garage up in Fountain Grove, would you feel like it was home to you? Or would you feel like you really didn't belong there? People want to be with people who they relate to, people who are, like with like. It's so important to feel home. So it's not just an apartment. It's not just a place to lay your head down at night. One of my favorite examples of that, there was a housing development that was going to go into Forestville. It was a mixed use, oh, that's so great, mixed use, mixed use. That's what cities are, apartments on top of stores. And they had to put their 10% affordable housing in. So what did they decide to do? There's stores on the bottom floor, and there are garages on the bottom floor, and all the apartments were above the stores. Well, where did they put the affordable housing? Right next to the garages, right behind the stores. 400 square foot apartments, ain't it lovely? So excuse me, but I wouldn't want to live next to somebody's garage, underneath somebody's apartment where they're pounding their feet on the floor above me because it's affordable and it's only 400 square feet. I'm sorry, that's not fair. It's not nice, it's not kind. So affordable housing has to come up with some other way. Now, Sonoma County has this wonderful Burbank housing, Habitat for Humanity housing. And Habitat for Humanity, they mostly take existing houses and restore them. People work on the houses, and the people who are volunteers for Habitat for Humanity help restore houses. It's a wonderful thing. Not many houses, though. It's like how many a year, and usually for families. And it's lovely when one happens, but it's not like lots of them, not enough to fill the need. I can't remember what the numbers are in terms of the need, but the need is far greater than the number of houses that are available. Burbank housing is housing developments, pretty tightly packed housing developments, because they need to be affordable, right? But the people who buy those houses, and they're bought houses, are people who qualify for the loan, but they don't have any down payment money. But they do have 30 hours a week that they can invest in their time as sweat equity to build these houses. It's a wonderful, wonderful program for people to get into a home that they actually own. And when they decide that they can't live there or don't want to live there anymore and they want to sell it, they can sell it, but they also have to sell it at affordable housing prices. So in those cases, people build their own community. I mean, while they're building these houses, they get to know everybody else in the community because someone else has qualified for that structure and is qualified by their skills. And and here's another really cool thing about it, because someone is like, I don't know how to hammer nails and do plumbing and electrical. Well, guess what? Contractors come in and help teach people how to build their own home. So they not only build their own home and their own community, but they also learn skills in the same time. How sweet is that? So that's a solution, but there's got to be more solutions because there's still more people than that one even has. And what about the people who can afford rent, but they can't afford to buy a place, and they don't have 30 hours, and they don't have skills, or they're on disability? A lot of them end up on the streets. It's really unfortunate. The vast majority of people you see on the streets, they have mental health issues. They're not there because they want to be there. They're there because there's no way they're going to get a job. And maybe they have some kind of assistance, say they're veterans and they've basically lost it with PTSD, and they've got physical issues, and they've got a pension, or they've got a disability pension or something like that, $600, $800 a month. Excuse me? You're not going to be able to live someplace on that. So they live on the streets. Sometimes the lucky ones have a vehicle to sleep in. And that's pretty darn sweet. And you'll see all over Sonoma County. Sonoma County has a safe parking program. So down by the administration building, underneath the highway, across the fairgrounds, you're going to see people who have RVs. And they live in the RVs, and they move, and they manage to live there. So they'll move to someplace. They come in at nighttime and sleep there, and they are safe and guarded. And again, they have created a little community for themselves. One of the things you find about people who are homeless is they tend to like to be together. They like to, again, like with like. It always comes down to like with like. They want to be with people who understand, who aren't going to judge them, who will share. I got some food tonight. Let me share it with you. I've got an extra blanket. Someone gave me an extra blanket. Let me share with you. So when I've been out for, say, the homeless count, which happens in January, and I've been out to do river cleanups and creek cleanups, you'll find communities of people who are homeless who create these communities together. And sometimes they're hiding in the bushes. They've done great jobs with brown and green tarps. And they create a sense of community for each other. They just feel safer together. It's really, really important to be together. So Sonoma County, Santa Rosa has created a state of emergency and for homeless people, and that has allowed churches and other organizations to open up abilities to create these communities on their property. It was not sanctioned until this state of emergency occurred. And out in Roseland, there is the Camp McKella, which was an experiment. Actually, it was Occupy Sonoma County who started it, and it became an experiment of what happens if we're self-governing. And the Community Development Commission, Jim Leddy, said, okay, let's see how this works, and has been very supportive of it. So Redwood Empire Food Bank brings some food by. They made sure they have toilets and electricity, and have created a little village inside of a fenced area where they police themselves. It's not a clean and sober facility, but people have to behave themselves, so they can't imbibe their various substances inside the fence line. They can go outside the fence line, imbibe, and come home, and usually sleep it off. They just have to behave while they're inside. They all share responsibilities. They keep it clean. They keep it neat and tidy. It's becoming an example that we're talking about in terms of, can this be done more? Tent cities, in essence. They're more accessible. They're more, it's a problem-solving situation that can happen more quickly than even things like tiny houses. Tiny houses take a lot of money. I mean, I was talking with John Lowry, who used to be the director of Burbank Housing, about this, because a tiny house, when they were talking about putting tiny houses down by the administration building, each one of those tiny houses would cost them $120,000 to put in because of all the infrastructure that needs to go in, the fresh water, the wastewater, all that, the electricity, all that stuff, plus the structure of the tiny house. And then they were going to do it, and it wasn't permanent. They were going to have to move it later on. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So the tent cities start making more sense for something that's an immediate solution that brings people together. One of the things out on the Russian River, West County Health Centers goes into these tent communities, legal or not legal, and helps people take care of their health issues. Comes in, examines them, makes sure that they're healthy, makes sure they have their needs met, gives them, if they need counseling, gives them counseling, just helps them. So one of the things that Santa Rosa has done by sanctioning the emergency shelters is offering more services to people who need help. Some of the people, like I say, they have substance abuse issues. If the county can come in with their health services and treat any of the ramifications of the substance abuse issues, then that's an asset to the individual and also an asset to the village that they live in. And then a lot of times when people start getting some help, they say, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to have substance abuse issues anymore. One of my favorite stories was there's a man named Rick Caffaretta. He's part of the North County Homeless Services, which is basically Windsor North. And he used to be a man on the streets. Lived in Santa Rosa, 9 years. Man on the streets, total drug and alcoholic, until one day the light came on. He was losing everything. He started losing his kids. I mean, he'd already lost his family and his home and lived on the streets, but his kids were getting older and he was not being able to see them anymore. And it just woke him up. And just one of those moments where he checked himself into a facility and became straight. And now he works for homeless services. So he goes around and he talks to all these people and makes sure they have food. And then he just earns their trust. I had an article last year called Trust This Man, which came out of that time where I met him going around from the homeless count. And then we went around later and I watched how he interacts with people. And some of the people we were meeting, one was a woman and a man who had a child, little kid. She's all like 18 months old. And I met the grandmother. She was the one who hosted us on the homeless count. And the father and mother were serious drug addicts. And they would, under the influence of methamphetamines, they'd get into fights, The kid gets over to the grandmother. Grandmother lives in a tent too. Not good for the kids. So Child Protective Services took the kid away. Well, the father, one day when I was out with Rick Caffaretta, came up to Rick and said, I want my kid. I don't want to do this anymore and I need your help. And that's what people are looking for. That's where all these volunteers and these church services and these health services, they're looking for that time when one person comes up and says, I don't want to do this anymore. And there's some reason that is so impelling them to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And this is a young man who must have been in his late 20s. And he's like showing us pictures of his little girl. And he said, I want to be a daddy. I want my little girl back. I need help. And that's what everybody lives for, who connects with these people in these homeless communities. And, you don't always get to do it. You don't always get to find someone like that. I was telling Marlo about I call him my favorite homeless person in Santa Rosa, Marco Zapata. His name is actually Mark Schumann. But anyway, Marco Zapata, his territory is down around Railroad Square, and he reads the Gazette, so I've communicated with him over the years. He got a truck this year, so he lives in the truck at night, but he spends a lot of time in the library in the daytime, and he's very, very clean, and he goes over to the there's a mission place where they feed people every day, and he's one of the cooks. He helps hand out clothes. He helps people many different ways. He helps people, so he has serious purpose in his life and lots of health issues. So he does spend a fair amount of time in hospitals getting fixed up and then back out on the street again. But he doesn't have a drug and alcohol problem. He's healthy and he's clean, and his purpose is helping homeless people. This is kind of his life purpose. And he says in wintertime, when it rains, now that he has a truck, he has a hard time with people asking, can I just sleep in your truck tonight? I'll only sleep in the front. And he says, I have to turn them down because it becomes a habit. It becomes a problem. And next thing I know, I'm wrapped into the lines too tight. So he moves his truck around into various places. But what he does do in the daytime, aside from going over to the mission and helping feed, clothe people, make sure they go through the shower programs and all the rest of it, is he goes to the libraries. Now, I've learned a lot about the Santa Rosa Library, Sonoma County Library System. It's probably the most compassionate entity you're going to see if you just simply expose yourself to it. You can have a library card if you're a homeless person. You can go in and you can spend a day in the warm in the shelter, and Marcos goes in and teaches people. So people will want to learn something, and he will sit them down with books and teach them things. He will teach them lessons. He will teach them languages. He spends his day, especially when it's cold and wet, teaching people in these libraries. I was delivering papers to the Santa Rosa Library on 3rd Street, and this young man, clearly a homeless person by his attire, but he looked quite straight, and he was kind of distraught about whatever was going on in his life right now. And he said, I really just need to just sit and be calm. I just need a place. And the woman behind the counter was so compassionate, and she was like, would you like a library card? Is that what it takes? Yes, he can get a library card. And how wonderful that it's a huge library. There's plenty of room for people. And their rules and regs are around behavior issues. You behave yourself, you're here. You want to learn, you're here. You want to be warm and dry and pick out some books and do all that, you're here. And how sweet and wonderful is that? It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And so when you see people in the library in Santa Rosa and you go, wow, they're kind of dirty, think about the compassion that this library has for people. And maybe you'll find Marco Zapata. He showed me a picture of a young girl who had come in. She was a Santa Rosa high school student. And she said, I have a job an assignment. I'm supposed to interview an old person. So can I interview you? And the question was, what has influenced your life the most? What traumatic experience did you have that influenced your life the most? And so when he said that question, of course, I had to think about my own. And I would present that one to you too. I'm not going to answer what he answered. I'm not going to answer what I answered. But what traumatic experience did you have while you were growing up that influenced you the most? I thought, what an interesting assignment. And it's the one that he answered as well. So my time is running out, and so I am going to encourage you to vote if you haven't voted. I have a couple of favorite initiatives myself. Measure M, I think it's time. The cannabis initiative, I think it's time. It's time to legalize this and make everybody legal like the rest of us in the wine industry and the beers, and everybody can get high, but make it legal and regulated the way we all want to get legal and regulated and taxed. And there's one on the ballot that I found really interesting, number 58, which had to do with language in schools. And we were talking about this earlier. It addresses English learners, people who speak Spanish, but what I really liked about 58 was it included Spanish learners. It included programs in schools into elementary school that teach Spanish to people who speak English and teach English to people who speak Spanish. It goes both ways. And if there's anything I've ever wanted is for starting in elementary school, starting in kindergarten, starting in preschool, let's get everybody speaking more languages. And when you're really, really young, it's when you learn languages the easiest. There's a fellow, Ricardo, who publishes La Prensa, and I said, so he speaks really, really good English. And I said, so do you translate in your head? Or do you just think in two different languages? Because some people say, I think in two different languages. And he said, no, I actually translate. So if you see me pause, I'm translating. I'm trying to come up with the right words. And think, wow, how interesting that must be. I only speak one language. How unfortunate. I never learned a second language. So I would encourage you to vote yes on 58 and get that education, anything to do with education, get that language education into schools so everybody learns two languages. Now I'm going to switch over to be completely self-serving. The Sonoma County Gazette in our December edition comes out November 23rd, the day before Thanksgiving. And the reason why I come out so early in the month is because I published a thing called the Small Shops of Sonoma County. And it's what I encourage people to go out and shop at locally owned stores. And I literally give you a map in the center. Ta-da! Right there. Oh, look at it. It's very interesting. It's green. So it got the vineyards right through it. Anyway, I forgot about the green part. Anyway, I encourage you to shop locally, and of course, you all know about the local matters, local this, local that, and it's really important to take your money and support a local merchant. And there are so many of them, and of course, I support them for two reasons. One, they have locally owned stores, and the money stays in the community. They live here in the community. They work here in the community. They hire people who live here, work here in the community. And their taxes stay in the community. So if you go into Santa Rosa and you pay sales tax in the store, it stays right in the community. And I would encourage you to pay cash. Believe it or not, they actually get a whole lot more money if you pay cash than if you use a credit card. I know it's hard, but if you don't use a credit card, if you could use a debit card, because the money stays in the community even more. So the Small Shops of Sonoma County will be coming out in the December edition of the Sonoma County Gazette. And all 9 of my delivery people, including me, will be on the streets on November 23rd, getting them in as many newsstands and locations as we possibly can. And I want you to pick one up. And when you go shopping, please support our local community in every way you can. And then I'll have it on my website at SonomaCountyGazette.com. And of course, I'll push it rather heavily on the little stories of the merchants I've met, because I got new discoveries and old friends, and I'm discovering all kinds of new people. And I encourage you to stop while you're shopping, go downtown, go someplace to eat, have a good time, meet these people. These are the people who, when you walk in their store, they're the ones who you're going to support. They're people who are employed, who have the jobs, who are living the affordable life, in Sonoma County. Thank you very much for listening. And please, when Marla gets this survey going, please take the survey on who watches C Media. Thank you.